Today we're going to talk about something that is almost never talked about amongst practitioners. And it's something that I think was a game changer for our practice and made all the difference in the world into our culture, our productivity, and the loyalty. And it's something I suggest you stay tuned because it's going to be mind-blowing. Many years ago, before starting my own practice, I used to work for an organization. And while employed there, they did something that I had never heard of, seen, or experienced, and that was a team retreat. And what came out of that was unbelievable. For the first time, I felt as if I was working for someone that really cared about me, who cared about what I thought, and cared about the direction of the organization I was working for. And that in itself really allowed me to become a lot more loyal to my employer and change the way I looked at my employer. So years later, when I started my own practice eventually, I thought, why not do that with my team? And the results were almost the same. And I dare say it has done wonders in increasing employee loyalty, their performance, their culture, and everything related to the practice. And the practice just suddenly got way better because we were doing a firm retreat. Because the purpose of the firm retreat is not for the benefit of the firm. You need to understand that the benefit of the retreat is for the benefit of the employees and to your team. So if you have that in mind and go with that philosophy that we are putting this retreat together for their benefit rather than your own, you will walk away with a team that is so gung-ho about your practice, it'll blow your mind out. But what is a team retreat? One of the objectives is to get the pulse of everyone on your team. Because if you have a much better understanding of what they want and expect in working for you, you will likely create a much better team working with you. So the kind of things we will tend to discuss at those team retreats is the direction of the firm. So for example, the kind of services that we are going to offer now and going forward. We may discuss things like the size of the practice. Do we want to grow this thing or not? Are there areas geographically where we would like to set up an office? What are the things that the team would like to see the practice accomplish in the next 1, 3, 5, 10 years? And basically what you're trying to find out is what is it that needs to happen in your practice for them to want to stick around for the next 1, 3, 5, 10 years. So part of the retreat is to come in contact with their dreams so that you can now implement strategies that will allow them all to live their dreams. And we talked briefly about it. The benefit of the retreat will be tremendous loyalty and great culture. So at Talbot & Associates, we've done retreats for many years. So what I'm going to do is share with you 7 things that I've learned on how to run a better team retreat. And I would suggest that you take close attention to these things because I think it will help ensure a really beneficial retreat. Number 1, I would suggest that you have an outside facilitator, not someone from your own team to run the whole retreat. Get someone from the outside to come in to run the retreat. And there's a few benefits of that I'm going to discuss right away. So one of the things you want to have the facilitator do is you want to select a facilitator who has experience in facilitating a retreat or meetings. Because those people will be better suited in making sure everything's run smoothly. The other thing that you want a facilitator to do is ensure that they are very aware of who's around the table, and you may even want to prepare the facilitator to who are the people who tend to hijack the meetings and who are the people who tend to be quiet.
Stand down. Hey, what did I just say?
Because you want the facilitator to draw everyone out of their comfort zone and share their thoughts. So you want to kind of direct the facilitator in pulling the people into the discussions all the time. And of course, the facilitator should be well aware of the agenda and making sure you're on time, because our retreat tend to be fairly long. And so it's important that we have an agenda and we have time allotted to each subject matter. And it was up to the facilitator to making sure that we're staying on top of each subject and following things through on time. But the biggest advantage of having a facilitator rather than you facilitating it is it allows you to kind of sit back and observe what's going on. Because I found that if I was facilitating it, it was difficult for me to really pay attention to the people who are not speaking. Because as a facilitator, I want my attention to go to the person who's speaking. But the beauty, if the facilitator is doing that, you as the leader can now kind of take a step back and look around the room and see how they're reacting to the comments being made. And what you get out of that is amazing, because sometimes the speaker, whoever's speaking at the table, will say something and then you notice, oh, that person didn't seem to like what was said. Things that you wouldn't pick up if you were facilitating the meeting. So I've always enjoyed being an attendee and allowing myself to really listen and focus on the entire team, how they're reacting, what they're saying, take notes, and be a participant rather than the facilitator. And you're probably going to find that you're going to get more out of the retreat and you're going to enjoy it a lot more if you've got someone from the outside facilitating it. The other thing that we recommend is that you do it off-site. So the first retreat we had them in our office. And then we took it outside, and I've noticed it changed the whole dynamic. People tend to relax a lot more. They tend to open up more. And that's what you want at a retreat. And I found that by doing it at an outside location, such as a hotel meeting room or something like that, the whole dynamic of the meeting changed and improved. So I would largely suggest that you have those retreat off location in an environment that is more relaxed. So if you can have it more into the wilderness or something to that effect, that works really nice. The third recommendation is that you look at the length of the retreat. So we've had retreats of all kinds of lengths, and I found that the optimum length was like 2 to 2.5 days. So sometimes we would have it over the weekend. So we would start the retreat, say, on Friday morning or Friday noon to allow people to travel. Have it all Friday afternoon, all day Saturday, and then end Sunday at noon. And if you want to do it the weekday, same kind of thing. But to have it over 3 days and then allow people to sleep over there for 2 nights. And that's what I would always enjoy, is to have a place where people couldn't drive home at night. They had to stay within the group. But the beauty is what happened in the evening is that when you've got everybody sitting around the swimming pool, having a few drinks, relaxing and laughing, the information that came out was almost as beneficial as at the retreat itself. Because what would happen, especially if they had a few drinks, the tongue got a little bit looser, and they would sometimes volunteer information that they did not feel at ease volunteering at the official meeting. So unofficially, they were open to discussing certain things that they may not have been open to discussing officially. And I've had that happen so many times where people would approach me and say, you know, Shaggy, at that meeting, somebody said this and then they said that, but I'm not too sure if I agree with all that. I didn't say anything, but it doesn't sit well with me. And I think that should be addressed. And I think that those things would never have come up if we had all gone home that night and not had those discussions. And oftentimes what will happen is a person's going to leave the meeting not feeling quite right, bring those discussions to somebody else, and they're going to say, me too. And the next thing you know, there's 4 or 5 people who all agree on a particular sentiment that they would not have thought was validated until they start sharing with other people. Again, would not have been possible if everybody had gone home that night. And I always found that if you let them discuss things in the evening, letting them know, well, tomorrow morning we're going to start again at 8:30 or whatever. But if they're like my team, they're going to be up till 3 a.m. talking about everything. But again, even those discussions happening at 3 a.m. are sometimes phenomenal. And I've stayed up fairly late more than once, taking in the information that I was getting from my team, because the discussions would continue on in the evening, unofficially. This fourth recommendation that I suggest is that you have someone take notes, but also have the notes shoot on the wall so that people know what are the notes that you're going to be taking back with you. So if anybody says anything and you're putting it out there and they disagree with what was typed up, they can say, no, that's not what I said. So I usually like to have whatever is being said taken down in notes, but shared with the entire team, so that everybody's in agreement as to what are the notes that we're going to be leaving the meeting with. So if they have a disagreement with what was taken down, they can say so. Number 5, I suggest that you come up with a list of what your objectives are. So at the end of the retreat, you have to come up with a list of objective and actionable steps. So what we tend to do is towards the end of the retreat, we always say, okay, well, what are our objectives? What are our takeaways from this retreat? And then what are the steps that we're going to take to make sure we attend each one of these objectives? And now we've got a list of maybe 15 things that we're going to do in the next 12 months. Now that we've identified what are the 15 things that we need to do in the next 12 months, I will assign a person to each one of those things. And it doesn't necessarily need to be you, because sometimes those ideas will be championed better by the person who brought it up. So have people in your team take on the responsibility of making sure each one of those 15 things that you came up with that you want to have happen actually do happen. And also be sure to put a date as to by when that will be done, so that you can have someone on your team, preferably your COO, who will then hold everyone on your team who volunteered to take on this responsibility, be held accountable to make sure that those things are done. Now, one of the things we always did at our retreats is we tend to start our retreat with a quick review of last year's retreat and say, here are the 15 things that we said we would do, and look, we've done them all. And if you haven't, because oftentimes out of the 15 things, there's always 2-3 things that fell by the wayside. But then I would explain to them why these things weren't done. And it might be because you decided to drop the idea. It might be because it just no longer worked. It may turn out that you decided it was a bad idea. But at least people go into the meeting remembering last year we agreed that we were going to do these 15 things, and we actually did the bulk of them. So now going into this retreat, I feel pretty good that if I suggest something and we agree that we're going to do it, it's going to happen. Because the last thing you want is for people to go into the retreat and say, why would I bother putting my opinion out there? I can say all I want, but nothing ever changes. And if you get that kind of a feeling going into the retreat, you're in trouble. So you have to demonstrate to your team that whatever was discussed and agreed upon at the retreat is actually getting implemented and acted upon. And now you're going to have an active group wanting to share, wanting to suggest, and making great ideas to the table. Number 6, have a few games. You want this thing to be fun, so I always found that sometimes in there when it gets a little bit tense, that you have a few games to just lighten the mood. And those games don't have to be very long. Usually they're between 15 minutes to 20, 25-minute games. Simple, mindless games. And you want to have games that will make people laugh. So the stupider the game, I don't know if stupider is a word, but it is to me. So the more crazy the game, the better. And number 7, the most important thing is that you make sure everyone goes there and they feel safe. So one of the things we always start off is starting with the rules of engagement and saying, here are the rules related to how we're going to run this meeting. So the purpose is for you. So making sure you understand that the purpose of the retreat is not to benefit the practice, but to benefit everyone sitting at the table. And given that's the purpose, it's important that they be safe and feel safe to share. So everybody has to be on board with that they feel safe and that they make others feel safe. So I encourage the whole team to encourage the people who tend not to speak up to actually speak up. So if your friend is sitting next to you and tends not to speak up, give them a nudge and have them speak up. But that's the culture I want to spread at the retreat. And as part of that, make sure that the facilitator is aware of the rules of engagement and really acts upon them. And in other words, make sure that they are making sure that everybody feels safe. So finally, what I want to also then address is some of you are saying, okay, I like the idea of having a retreat, but I don't know where to start. I don't know what kind of things we could discuss at the retreat. I don't know where to go with this. So I'm just going to throw a whole bunch of little things, ideas of things we've done at our retreats, and you can use those ideas, come up with your own. But I'm just going to give you a few ideas of things you want to discuss at the retreat. So one of the things that I suggest you do is that, number one, is don't be afraid of attacking that elephant in the room.
First, we need to acknowledge the elephant in the room. Francine, happy birthday.
And every now and then, you're going to have a year where you're going to say, okay, we've got this problem, this elephant that nobody seems to want to talk about, and it's just kind of weighing heavy on everybody's mind, whatever that may be. And so you want the retreat to be an opportunity to discuss that elephant that nobody seems to want to discuss. And it may not be something you want to address at a team meeting because you know it's going to take too long and it's too convoluted. So those are the things you want to address at a retreat. And what I suggest you do is you start with the nastiest elephant. Attack that one first. So that really big, ugly elephant, attack that one first and put it out there and put it to rest. And discuss it until everybody's at ease with the subject. So start there. Once the more difficult subjects have been out of the way, now you can move into the things that are more fun, things that people will enjoy discussing, and so on and so forth. So to give you an example of a possible elephant in the room might be something like the dress code. So there might be a huge disagreement amongst your team as to what the dress code should be. So maybe there are people who are saying, well, it should be coat and tie because after all, we are in accounting or bookkeeping or whatever office. And there are others saying, no way, I'm not wearing a tie. So of course, you as a leader could take on the dictatorship hat on and say, this is the rule, we all wear a suit and tie, whether you like it or not. But what I've chosen to do instead is rather than mandate the coat and tie, we actually brought it up at a team retreat. And it actually came out as a fairly heated discussion, believe it or not. But what was really interesting is that when we attacked the dress code, everybody felt safe to address their concerns, what they liked about it, did not like about it, and we went the whole spectrum of the dress code, men and women. But what was really interesting is the outcome of that. One of the employees who was so adamantly against the coat and tie, because we had agreed at the retreat that the majority was for the coat and tie, and the person who was really banging on the table, totally against the coat and tie, at the end of the discussion says, okay, I don't like it, but I get it. If this is where everybody's going, I'm in. But what was really amazing is that maybe 2 weeks later, that person walked in with a really nice suit, and I complimented him, wow, what a nice suit. And he says, yeah, well, I bought 3 of them. I figured if this is the way we're gonna go, I might as well buy 3 suits and wear them. But what I really appreciated is that I think he appreciated the fact he got an opportunity to voice his discontent with it and understood that even if we didn't agree with him and did not adapt the more relaxed dress code, he was okay with adapting the dress code because he had an opportunity to voice his concern and talk about why he didn't like it. So it does create tremendous buy-in and warm culture towards these possibly less popular ideas. So some of the things you could discuss at those Retreats would be like a SWOT analysis. So a SWOT analysis is where you're going to discuss the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and threats of the firm. Because part of that is to kind of get a sense of how everybody feels about the practice and about the firm that you're managing and that you're leading. So when you talk about the strengths, everybody's going to take a certain pride in saying, wow, we really are a good practice. So them taking pride in the practice will increase the amount that they're going to give of themselves to the practice. And then when you're going to discuss the weaknesses, then they feel kind of good because, okay, we acknowledge that we have these weaknesses and now we can address them. And then you talk about the opportunities and threats. And then when you talk about the opportunities, everybody gets excited because they're thinking, holy crap, these opportunities will open doors to me that I never thought possible. And then the second part of a SWOT analysis is addressing each one of those threats and the weaknesses and all that. And then the beauty, everybody kind of goes home and says, okay, we had those threats, we had those weaknesses, we had all those opportunities, we discussed it all, we've got a game plan to attack each one of those things. So now working for your practice becomes a hell of a lot more fun because you've addressed all of those things that they may have a concern about in working for your practice. Another thing that we've done, and we do that every 2 or 3 years, is what we call the stop, start, keep. So we ask everyone around the table to tell the rest of the team the things that they want to stop doing, the things they want to start doing, and the things they want to keep doing. And the fun part of that exercise, and I still remember one of our first retreats, we had this lady who mentioned the fact that one of the things she'd like to start doing was doing more audit work. And that was tremendously great news for everybody else around the table because most of the people had audit work on their stop list, things they wanted to no longer do. So needless to say, by us being aware that this lady really loved doing audits, we were able then to shift all of the audit work that nobody enjoyed doing to this particular person who actually enjoyed doing it. So everybody's level of enjoyment in working here improved because of this exercise doing the stop, start, keep. And as a leader, wouldn't you like to know what are the things that people like doing, the things that they want to start doing and learn how to do, and the things they want to get rid of? Because strangely enough, a lot of the things that people will say that they want to stop doing, you're going to have somebody else around the room saying, hey, you want to stop doing it, but I'd like to start doing that. So it's amazing how there can be an exchange now of tasks within the practice. And you're going to find that your team, if they're doing what they enjoy, they're going to do it much better. So the stop, start, keep, I always found that to be a tremendously worthwhile exercise to do at the retreat. So another thing that you could do at the firm retreat is discuss your mission statement. So in one of the previous episodes, we talked about possibly doing or putting on paper a mission statement for your organization or for your practice. But why not have the whole team weigh in on that mission statement? Do you not believe you're going to get much better buy-in into any mission statement if the entire team contributed to creating this mission statement? So this is one of the things that could be done at a retreat. And on the similar topic, I should say, you could also determine what are the core values of the firm. Let's put down on paper what are the core values that we want to adhere to going forward, the things that are close to our heart that we need to put into writing of where do we draw the line with regards to our core values. So core values is a great thing to discuss at a team meeting, or rather at a retreat. Something we've done on more than one occasion is do a book review. So I'm very big in reading all kinds of self-help books, books on practice, books on all kinds of subjects. And what I would do is if I found a book that was really, really beneficial, what I would do is summarize the book. In other words, extrapolate certain pages, certain paragraphs. And so I would condense the 200, 300, 400 page book into something like 20 pages or so. And then what I would do is prior to the retreat, have everybody read those 20 pages. And I would give them the homework of highlighting all the things that caught their attention that they thought was worthwhile. And then I would tell them to bring that to the retreat. And then we would have a several-hour discussion on that. And usually I broke down the book into chapters, subjects, or whatever. So we're going to say, now we're going to discuss chapter 1. So chapter 1 talks about this, that. Does anybody think there's anything to add to that? And then the discussion would start. And I always found that to be really worthwhile because it was an opportunity for everyone to share and either disagree or agree with what the book or the author of the book was saying and flesh out a whole bunch of ideas for your practice. On a similar line, you can do the same thing with a video. So there are tons and tons of great TED Talks and YouTube videos out there that range between 10 and 30 minutes. And I tend to keep the videos below 30 minutes. And every now and then you're going to find maybe a 1-hour video that you really like. But what I would do is extrapolate the best 30 minutes, the one that really maybe talks to the subject more clearly, and only play those 30 minutes because longer than that it becomes too long. And then play the 30-minute video, and then again, ask everyone to provide their comments and their thoughts related to the video. And whether it relates to the book or the video, if you're a larger group, define larger group however you like, but I found that if you are more than 10 people, dividing the groups up into groups of 4, 5, 6 people tend to bring up more discussions. So at our firm, we are now a group of 70 people. Whenever we had those discussions, we often had a lot of these discussions into smaller groups. They would take notes, and then at the end, we would just have someone talk about what each table discussed. So those group discussions are really beneficial and gets people thinking, talking, and they get a better sense of the challenges that you have as CEO. Because basically that's what the kind of thing you want to do at the retreat. You want to give them a sense of what it's like to run a practice. What are the problems that you're continually dealing with? And then making them aware, look guys, we're in this all together. Let's find a solution to all those things so that we can all have a better work environment. Because after all, it is for their benefit, not yours. So if any of you need some ideas on the things you would like to discuss at your retreat, by all means, do not hesitate to give us a call, or better yet, join our LinkedIn chat group and put your thoughts and put the question out there. We're doing a retreat and we would like to get some ideas of the kind of things we could discuss at a retreat, and get the input of other people who may have done retreats. And if you've never done a retreat, I strongly recommend that you do. And if any of you are willing and saying, well, I'd like to try one, but you've never put one together and you would like my help, by all means, give me a call, and I'd even be happy to give you a hand at either facilitating it myself or recommending other facilitators to help you with that project.